as we're learning all these different spiritual practices, today we're learning about the spiritual practice of hospitality. And I just want to say thank you for inviting me into your space today and being hospitable to me in a sense. And I'm so glad that you took the time to learn this with us and to add yet another tool to our tool belt, so to speak, and how to really abide in Christ and how to create this life with God using these different spiritual practices. Today, we heard from John Orozco. Thank you so much for teaching us about hospitality. And I think I've never really thought about hospitality as a spiritual practice. How did you get to that?
It took a lot of work. But then all of a sudden, it was important for me to, again, demystify the illusion that this is hyper complex spiritual practice. Because you do want to kind of make it mystical and abstract, but then you realize, hospitality is a spiritual practice that's actually really basic.
Yeah, and super important to being Christ-like, or to be with others in community, just to open up yourself and open up your home and open up your computer and say, I'm going to connect with others and not just be on the outside looking in. You drew some parallels between the long-term preparation of our ancestors, so to speak, kind of the depth that they experienced when they prepared meals and even raised their own livestock and stuff. How do you personally find balance in this super fast-paced world where everything is now, you said it yourself, it's microwaved, it's now, to make sure that this hospitality is deep and meaningful and not quick and convenient? Yeah.
Well, that's what I noticed, is just the pace of life and the way that we experience life, social media platforms, the way that we communicate with one another, whether it's a text or an emoji. Like, most of these are just like a facsimile of hospitality. They're a really weird it's a progressive version of what hospitality actually looks like. It's a copy of it. And so the idea of having someone in your space or pausing long enough to, hey, how are you? How are you doing? Those things aren't common, because we live in proportion, again, to the things that we experience, which is right now.
Right.
I shoot you a text right now. I order these things on demand right now. I DoorDash everything right now. And so, like, most of life is really shallow.
Yeah.
And it gives you the illusion that it's deep, true hospitality. But when you think about our history and how the way that most things were prepared and experienced were over long durations of time, I mean, so was community, so was hospitality, where if we're going to share time together, it's probably going to be 4 or 5 hours worth of
But that scares me too.
Sit and talk together.
Like when Chris Stockhausen was talking about that level 1 hospitality in a previous message, he talked about level 1 is just going and being in somebody else's space, allowing hospitality to reach you. And there's fear in that too. Like, how long am I supposed to be there? When is it okay to leave? There's these weird fears about that. Maybe because we're so instant, everything has to be just right now and convenient, that even that becomes a hurdle.
Yeah.
Not opening your home or opening your space, but even accepting hospitality. This is really
and those are questions that we go into moments thinking. Like, I haven't been there 5 minutes, and the question is, when am I leaving? What's the next thing?
I'm not the only one then, I guess.
My watch, it pinged.
Yeah.
My phone, it pinged. I'm automatically, like, removed from the experience of what it means to share a moment with another human being. Again, because we're living in proportion to our lived experience, which is, boom, instant. And so we're trying to figure out what it means to ask ourselves new questions, like, when I enter into a space, what does it mean to just, like, be and stop and not feel like I'm immediately rushing on to the next thing?
Well, and also, that's my second question, is around the fact that I think in our society and in our community, in our world, there's a lot of, like, what's in it for me type of thing. Like, I'm going to invest, but I want to see some ROI on whatever investment I'm making in being here or by allowing you to be with me. And you double-clicked on Leviticus, which I thought was, I don't think I've heard a message with Leviticus, and a Leviticus verse in there. You emphasize the giving nature of hospitality without expecting return. Have you given an example of that from your own life?
Yeah, I mean, hospitality is highly asymmetrical, and then I probably experienced the most intense version of that when I was 18, and I visited an orphanage. Maybe I was older than that. I visited an orphanage, but this orphanage was opened up by a family who, they didn't have anything, but they saw this need, and so they brought these children into their home. Mm-hmm. Obviously, these kids, they couldn't give anything back. A lot of these children were disabled, and so it was very one-sided exchange of, hey, I'm going to bring you in, I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to offer you food, and I'm going to offer you shelter. And it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. But as I witnessed that, I realized, like, there's something really important here, and it's asymmetrical, and it's nothing that I'm going to receive back. There's no, I'm going to do this for you, you do this for me. But it was the most beautiful expression of love. And there's something in that, I think, that inspires us all, and that we all need to experience that in one way or another.
We need this
in
our life. You mentioned the importance of allowing the church in as part of the spiritual practice of hospitality. How do you envision that playing out for Cornerstone, especially with our challenges? We've got digital distractions. We have continued increasing individualism. We're very much about ourselves. What do you hope to see? Getting
practical with that, I love that we have neighborhood church as like a first space. We just had it recently, and it's a 2.5-hour affair at minimum, where it's community over content. Generally it's here's what we're teaching, and here's some practical principles, and let's wrestle with this. But in our neighborhood church experiences and what was happening with our Zoom meetings online, it was, hey, let me just hear from you. How are you doing? Like, I want to experience your life, and I want you to experience mine. And the pace of it was so much slower. And so I love how we have tangible, practical things. And a lot of that is going to require from us, like I mentioned with the calendar thing, where we're looking at our actual schedules and going, you know what, I'm going to set aside time for this one thing to invest in this beautiful practice of hospitality. And there will be a benefit that it's not the intention, but it is a result. It's incidental, that when we say, yes, I'm going to invest in this, I'm going to give, there will be a return that we receive. And I think it's organic, and it's life-giving. And a lot of the comments that we received after neighborhood church was, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much I needed this.
Wow.
So that was awesome.
That's really good. And I also think it just takes us a next step closer to the words and the actions of Jesus, what he modeled and what he did. So thanks for pushing us as a church towards that. And I think that's one thing that John mentioned in the message. He said, make sure that you plan for it, or that you clean up, or that you have things set out to host people, or to have people in your home, or to make sure that there's gas in your car so you can actually make it to that other person's home. I'd say for you too, if you are joining us online exclusively, you're going to have to figure out, like, is my background good? Am I going to be on Zoom? Is it updated? Which device am I going to use? Where am I going to sit? You're going to have to plan for that. And then allowing other people to see you and be vulnerable in that and create community like that. We need you. You need us. And so let's move forward in this spiritual practice of hospitality. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time.